During the 2016 election, President Trump ran among other things, the need to improve our relationship with Russia. And he hasn't been able to do so as a result of this clearly fictitious investigation about him colluding with Russian politicians. If they wanted to do a real investigation, they would have investigated Trump's involvement with Israel. But I digress. You would think after the Mueller report, he would be free to go ahead and race to begin repairing our relationship with Russia. I found this article regarding this, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but key things here. And I just got through talking about part of what it covers, but in this first section here, right here, now that the Russian collusion myth has been revealed to be a seditious conspiracy by the deep state, the Democratic Party, and the media, President Donald Trump needs to move on with his election promise to improve relations with Moscow. That is a geopolitical and civilizational necessity. And this is undeniable wisdom. And this is sarcasm, all right? The undeniable wisdom of such recommendations was instantly recognized by the Washington establishment. Not only did Democrats and never-Trump Republicans back off their Nazi Putin paranoia, Trump's own team, starting with National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, rushed copies of DePetre's and musings into their boss's desks. And that's who wrote the above here. I'm just can't pronounce the name. The most striking evidence of the now liberated Trump administration's beeline towards a new realist overture toward Moscow was explicit U.S. recognition of Crimea as part of Russia. The newfound respect for Russia's security needs is evident. The White House. Proclamation on recognizing Crimea as part of the Russian Federation. Now, this is not a real proclamation, but it should read, the Russian Federation took control of Crimea in 2014 to safeguard its security from external threats. Today, aggressive acts by NATO, including U.S. forces in the Black Sea and Ukraine, continue to make Crimea a potential launching ground for attacks on Russia. Any possible future peace agreement in the region must account for Russia's need to protect itself from NATO and other regional threats. Based on these unique circumstances, it is therefore appropriate to recognize Russian sovereignty over Crimea. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim the United States recognizes that Crimea is part of the Russian Federation. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 25th day of March in the year of our Lord 2019, and of the independence of the United States of America, and 240 third Donald J. Trump. Oh wait, that didn't actually happen. Now moving down here, they go on to talk about how it's fantasy to believe that Trump has been freed by Mueller's goose egg, or his report, and that they're going to continue to keep digging shit up on Trump's private and business affairs, and to find something for which they can impeach him. But this is not correct, as Nancy Pelosi has recently herself come out and said that this is not even a possibility. I wonder why that is. Could it be that they've all been colluding together the whole time? Could it be? I don't know. I wasn't there, but it seems likely. As far as Russia goes, there was no direct collusion, but on the other hand, the report, even before it's released, is being cited across the political spectrum as proof that Russia interfered in our election to undermine our democracy, and thus as reason to keep the demonization campaign against Russia going. Now, maybe they threw some ads up on Facebook. I don't really consider that collusion, and I consider that, you know, voting or rooting for your candidate, sort of speak. I don't really... How would that affect our elections and the way people think about each of the candidates? And that's what it all boiled down to, by the way, are some ads on Facebook and other social media platforms. That's the extent of their interference. But our country, on the other hand, our government, well, we have a very long history of overthrowing governments and using drug money to install CIA-trained dictators, brutal dictators, in these countries. So, in my opinion, what Russia did is mere peanuts in comparison to what our politicians and government has done throughout the years. So, he's wrong about this. They're not going to impeach him. Nancy Pelosi herself has recently said that. Pathetically, Trump will continue to defend himself by boasting that nobody's been tougher on Russia than he has, while futilely calling for better relations. Now, Albert Einstein said something very, very brilliant. He said that you can't prepare for war and prevent it simultaneously. And that's true. If you're preparing for war, there's going to be a fucking war. Let's see here. But what we're getting down to here is Donald Trump is still being tough on Russia for no good reason, by the way, other than his own political neck. Aside from occasional pipe dreams that supposedly declining power, Russia can be pressed into service as a check against China, what we can count on is continuation of the coordinated campaign to render Russia's strategic situation untenable, deployment of intermediate range weapons in Europe to make warning virtually non-existent, strategic bomber probes with prototype nuclear-armed cruise missiles to prepare the aircraft for the possibility of launching the long-range standoff weapon, or the LRSO weapon. NATO maneuvers around Russia's lands and sea borders. More sanctions, yet more expansion of NATO. Vilification of Russia and in particular Vladimir Putin. Militarization of Ukraine. Attacking the Orthodox Church and the Skripal hoax. More chemical false flags in Syria. Trying to take South Stream 2, blaming Russia for undermining democracy in every Western country in addition to the U.S. All are components of a full-blown spectrum operation to destroy Russia's economy, to destabilize its society, to replace its regime with one more to their partners' liking, and ultimately to dismember Russia. In the face of this, one is mystified why Putin, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and other Russian statesmen continue to refer politely to their Western partners even when it's painfully clear that they have no Western partners. In short, these Western partners hate Russia, not for what it does, but for what it is, an obstacle to absolute global domination by a U.S.-led liberal international order. Now, I've said many times that if Vladimir Putin was as smart as everybody thinks he is, he would not wait for us to be able to counter his hypersonic missiles. And perhaps this is why Donald Trump has recently come out talking about the need to prepare for an EMP. Perhaps he knows that Russia would be foolish to keep going down the road we're going. It would be very foolish of Russia to allow the United States to develop technology to counter that hypersonic missile, considering our aggressive stance across the entire world. Russia's deployment of the most powerful weapons imaginable perhaps can limit the military aspect of that agenda, but it cannot reverse it. Quite to the contrary, such actions like Moscow's defense moves after the 2014 regime change in Ukraine, or Russia's 2015 deployment in Syria, or current presence in Venezuela, are held up as further proof of Russians' typically almost genetically driven aggressiveness, in the words of former CIA Director James Clapper. Now, Russia understands what's going on. If they don't, then man, something's wrong with Putin and Sergei Lavrov and the rest of them. I'm only familiar with the two. It would be stupid. It would be stupid for them to sit around and wait for NATO and the United States to strike. And this is my premise for my theory that Russia will attack us at some point, probably not too long from now. And what I mean by not too long is perhaps in the next 5 years. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. And again, any military tactician would be stupid to recommend anything other than a preemptive strike against NATO and the United States. Just my opinion, just my theory. You can take it or leave it. You can give me your opinion below in the comment section. I am interested in knowing what you think. I don't think Russia would necessarily detonate nuclear weapons in such a way as to destroy the cities, but rather would detonate them in the stratosphere, causing an EMP effect. Now, if I were Vladimir Putin or their generals, I would recommend doing that and letting America eat itself alive and then coming in and cleaning up. But maybe they won't. But it sure seems like probably if their country is to survive, that's what they're going to have to do. That's what it looks like. All right. Notwithstanding their soft rhetoric, the Russian leadership understands this quite well, as Professor Stephen Cohen observes. In quotes, Moscow closely follows what is said and written in the United States about U.S.-Russian relations. Here, too, words have consequences. On March 14th, Russia's National Security Council, headed by President Putin, officially raised its perception of American intentions towards Russia from military dangers to direct military threats. In short, the Kremlin is preparing for war, however defensive its intention. Just over a year ago, in March 2018, Putin unveiled a new set of deterrent capabilities against all those who have fueled the arms race over the last 15 years, sought to win unilateral advantages over Russia, and introduced unlawful sanctions aimed to contain our country's development. And he was talking about the U.S. and NATO. Putin said then, well, listen to us now. Of course, they didn't listen a year ago, and they're not listening today either. And they never will. So you keep thinking, as the title says, war with Russia is not available. You keep repeating that. But saying it and repeating it doesn't make it so. Mark my words, people. Our nation's days are numbered, and it is a direct result of the careless and sometimes stupid actions of our politicians and government. This is why we should all kill the state before the state kills us all.